Ozzy Osbourne finds former Black Sabbath roadie pumping gas. Then this happens at an old gas station on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Under a flickering Shell sign that hummed like a ghost of the 1970s, a black Mercedes came to a quiet stop. The air smelled of gasoline, dust, and faded dreams. It was October 2018, the sky heavy with a sunset that looked almost tired. Inside that car sat Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, staring absently out the window. He wasn't thinking about fame or tours or money. He was thinking about nothing in particular, until his eyes landed on a man. The man was wiping his hands with an oily rag, wearing a faded blue coverall that had once been navy. He was older, his face lined, his hair graying, his eyes hollow. Yet something about him made Ozzy's heart skip a beat. He blinked once, then again, and suddenly time stopped. It couldn't be, but it was. The man under that Shell sign, the one who looked like he'd been erased by life, was someone Ozzy once loved like a brother. He whispered, almost to himself, "Tommy." And with that single word, 40 years of buried memories came flooding back. Birmingham to Los Angeles. 4 young men in leather jackets and heavy boots, hungry to conquer the world. Black Sabbath wasn't just a band, it was a storm. And in the background of every show, every tour, every night of chaos stood Tommy Mitchell, the man who held the world together when everything went wrong. He was the invisible 5th member of the band. When Tony Iommi's strings snapped in Detroit, it was Tommy who fixed it in 10 minutes. When Ozzy nearly collapsed from exhaustion, it was Tommy who caught him before he hit the floor. When fights broke out backstage, Tommy's arms were the wall that kept the family from tearing apart. But then, like many roadies, like many unsung heroes, he vanished. Years passed. Albums changed. The world moved on, and somewhere between platinum records and rehab clinics, fame and fatigue, Ozzy forgot about Tommy, or so he thought. The man at the gas station looked up, ready to greet a customer. But when he saw Ozzy, he froze. The rag dropped from his hand, the color drained from his face, and the years collapsed between them like a house of cards. "Tommy, is that you, son?" Ozzy's voice trembled. Tommy stepped back, his lips quivering. "Yeah, it's me, Ozzy. It's me." They stared at each other, 2 survivors of a war called life, neither knowing what to say next. When Ozzy embraced him, the world disappeared. The hum of traffic, the glow of neon, the ticking of the fuel meter, all gone. There was just the sound of a broken man finally finding a piece of himself again. Sharon stepped out of the car quietly, watching her husband's eyes fill with tears. She had seen Ozzy cry before, but never like this. This wasn't pain. This was redemption. Inside that small, forgotten gas station, time stood still. Ozzy and Tommy talked for hours. Tommy told his story, a story soaked in loss and regret. After leaving Sabbath, he'd started a small equipment company. For a while, things went well. He got married, had 2 kids, even bought a modest home in Pasadena. Then came the crash. 1995, the economy crumbled. His business folded. His wife left. The bottle became his only company. He hit rock bottom and stayed there. "I sleep in a trailer now," Tommy said quietly. "No one wants to hire an old roadie." Ozzy looked at him, the same man who once shielded him from a flying bottle in Amsterdam, who once carried amps through freezing rain so the show could go on. Ozzy put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. "You saved my life once, Tommy. Now it's my turn." He reached into his pocket and handed him a card. Sharon's handwriting glimmered in gold ink. "Tomorrow morning, 8 sharp, my house. Don't make me come back here and kidnap you." Tommy smiled, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I'll come, Ozzy, I promise." When the door opened the next morning, Tommy thought he was dreaming. Ozzy stood there in sweatpants and a mug of coffee. "Bloody hell, you're on time. Sharon owes me 20 quid. The warmth of the Osbourne home wasn't in its chandeliers or marble floors. It was in the way Sharon smiled as she served eggs and bacon, the way Ozzy laughed like a teenager remembering his first gig. For hours, they talked about the old days, the crazy tours, Tony's temper, Geezer's weird diet, Bill's unstoppable energy. Then Ozzy leaned forward. "Tell me something, mate. You still know your way around a soundboard?" Tommy chuckled. "That knowledge never fades." Ozzy grinned. "Good, because I'm going back on tour. 20 shows, Europe, you in? Tommy froze. His throat tightened. Ozzy, I can't. I'm not who I used to be. Ozzy slammed his hand on the table. Neither am I. But who cares? Let's do this together, one last ride. Tommy's tears returned, but this time they were different. They were the kind that wash away years of pain. Before we continue this story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. If you believe in second chances, hit that like button and subscribe to Voices of Darkness. Let's hit 1,000 subscribers and keep bringing real stories from the forgotten corners of rock history. Tommy returned to the world he once knew, but this time it was filled with LED panels, digital consoles, and young techs who looked at him like a relic until he fixed his first feedback loop. 2 minutes done. The room went silent. Then applause. That's why I brought him back, Ozzy shouted. Old school knowledge never dies. The European tour began in London's O2 Arena. 20,000 fans. Lights, smoke, madness. Tommy stood backstage, his heart pounding like a bass drum. Everything was ready. Ozzy turned, smiled, and said, "Come with me." What? Me? Yeah, mate. Tonight's not just my return. It's yours. When Tommy stepped onto that stage, the cheers shook his bones. He wasn't just a forgotten roadie anymore. He was part of something sacred again. The tour rolled across Europe. Paris, Berlin, Rome, Madrid. Every night, Tommy worked like a man half his age. The young crew started calling him Brother Tommy. Backstage, Sharon took care of him like family. She helped him find a small apartment. Even reconnected him with his kids. One night, his son called. Dad, are you really working with Ozzy Osbourne again? Yeah, son. Life's funny like that. Tommy's heart felt full again, something he hadn't felt in decades. 6 months later, Birmingham, Ozzy's hometown. The Genting Arena was packed, 25,000 fans chanting his name. Before the encore, Ozzy grabbed the mic. London, Paris, Berlin, maybe we've seen it all. But tonight's special. Tonight I want to thank someone. He looked backstage. Tommy Mitchell, get your arse out here. The crowd erupted. Tommy froze. Ozzy grabbed his hand and pulled him forward. This man was with me 40 years ago. Life beat him down, but he never gave up. He's my brother, my hero. Give him the love he deserves. 25,000 people stood and cheered. Tommy wept on stage, his tears glittering under the lights. I'm just a roadie, he said into the mic. But Ozzy gave me something I thought I'd lost, a reason to live again. If this story means anything, it's this: never give up. And never forget those who stood by you. That night, the party raged backstage. Champagne, laughter, music. But in a quiet corner, Ozzy and Tommy sat side by side, two old souls who had finally come full circle. Ozzy raised his beer. To you, Tommy. You gave me strength I didn't know I needed. Tommy smiled. And you gave me life, Ozzy. You made me feel seen again. They clinked their bottles. No more words were needed 2 years later. Tommy was still Ozzy's stage manager. His life had transformed. His kids called him every week. He'd even become a grandfather. He gave his grandson a small electric guitar and taught him his first chord. Grandpa, were you famous? Tommy smiled. No, love. But I stood beside a man who was... And he showed me that even the forgotten deserve a second chance. Months later, Ozzy sat on a late-night talk show. The host leaned forward. Ozzy, you've seen everything. Fame, chaos, loss. What was your most unforgettable moment? Ozzy smiled, eyes glistening. Finding an old friend again? His name's Tommy Mitchell. The world forgot him, but I never did. He taught me what loyalty and brotherhood really mean. The audience applauded. Somewhere across town, Tommy sat in his small apartment, watching the interview with tears in his eyes. He whispered, "Thank you, Ozzy." The screen faded to black. If you love Ozzy Osbourne, share this video, because this story isn't just about fame. It's about loyalty, redemption, and the second chances that save our souls. Prove your love for the Prince of Darkness, and help Voices of Darkness reach 1,000 subscribers. Like, share, and tell a friend that even legends have hearts.